Hello, beautiful people of the internet, and welcome back to the Flat Back 3. My name is Toby Wellington. Thank you very much for joining us once again as we react to all the news that has come out of this year's Star Wars celebration. Of course, Star Wars Celebration has been held in London today, and lots of news breaking after lots of different trailers and casts and directors were shown off, paraded, and introduced to the Star Wars fans for what is to come in the near future. Now, first and foremost, it should be stated that there isn't a lot to celebrate for Star Wars at the moment, and that's where I'm going to start. The season premiere for The Mandalorian was 25% lower than The Mandalorian Season 2 premiere, and that trend has continued through Season 3 of The Mandalorian, which has largely been disappointing as a season so far. I am yet to watch this week's episode, but we will have our review up by the end of the week. But of course, let's not forget that the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan are currently above The Mandalorian Season 3. And with The Mandalorian being the flagship show for the Star Wars franchise at the moment, it's a real surprise that those viewing figures are down. Of course, we saw The Force Awakens, the last Jedi, yes, and the Rise of Skywalker. See, they are such forgettable movies that I can't even remember the titles, but they basically split and killed the franchise before some recent productions that got fans enthusiastic again, only to kill that enthusiasm again in the way that we saw Book of Boba Fett grab no one's interest. We saw Obi-Wan Kenobi disappoint everyone across the board, and we have seen Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy as part of Disney really deliver very little to be excited about over the last 4 or 5 years, essentially. And with The Mandalorian continually going down in quality, what did they have to bring for us today? Well, there are lots of things. There are 3 movies and a number of series that we can look forward to in a galaxy far, far away in the near future. Of course, I am using IGN's website post to summarize everything that is coming up. Of course, 3 new Star Wars movies, like I said, first and foremost, and I have to laugh because one thing that I don't know that anybody wanted was the return of Rey or Daisy Ridley. But that is what we are getting, as it was confirmed that 15 years after The Rise of Skywalker, there will be a movie featuring Daisy Ridley that sees her trying to build a new Jedi Order. And I have to ask the question, who wants this movie? Who wants Daisy Ridley back? Who wants Rey back? Daisy Ridley, who has all the acting range of me after being completely paralytic on a night out and falling asleep for 11 hours and trying to get me to act in the middle of that 11 hours, or compare it to a wheelie bin. That's how engaging Daisy Ridley is in the Star Wars movies that she stars in. And what has she done since? A grand total of absolutely nothing, which, of course, is to be highlighted in terms of her appeal and her quality, of course. And I have nothing personal against Daisy Ridley, but she was the focal point for what was the death of Star Wars, in my opinion. Let's also not forget that Rey, the character, was largely despised by near everyone, as she was the focal point of those 3 sequel movies, having overcome every obstacle with minimal effort and becoming a master of the Force without any real training. And of course, that could be leveled at Luke in the original trilogy. But of course, we know that Luke was learning from Jedi Masters and was actually doing some training. All we really saw Daisy Ridley do was mope about on an island planet with Luke Skywalker, who didn't want to be a Jedi. Thank you, Rian Johnson, for that. Of course, this movie could be 1,000,000% better, the one that is set to come out, if Luke Skywalker was still involved, if Leia was alive, if Han Solo was around. Hell, even if they kept Kylo Ren alive at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. But instead, they decided to kill off every other main cast member and keep Daisy Ridley's Rey as a focal point. And I am absolutely sure we will have no strong male characters acting independently throughout this movie and any series going forward from Star Wars. I have seen some trailers, one of which was the Ahsoka trailer. Of course, Ahsoka is one of the most anticipated things that is set to come out from Lucasfilm, Disney, and Star Wars in the near future. It is set to drop this year, and I have to say it is something that will be a bit refreshing to see, though again, I have to ask the question about the continuity of the Star Wars universe and the decisions being made over at Lucasfilm. Ahsoka has not been a key character in any of the prequel, original, or sequel trilogy, has never been mentioned by name in anything until season 2 of The Mandalorian, is now going to be inserted as a key character. And of course, from the trailer, we saw a number of new Jedi that we are likely to encounter, some new Sith, and characters from Star Wars Rebels that are going to be introduced into the main timeline. Now, whilst I completely understand their decision to do that, with Star Wars Rebels being and the Clone Wars, apologies, being extremely popular in its time, I was always under the impression that that was canon. But now, of course, we are taking that canon, turning it into live action canon, but probably changing things along the way. And again, I have to ask the question, where have all these Sith characters been in the time between series, movies, and other instances of key goings on across the galaxy? I also wanted to raise from the Ahsoka trailer that actually it looks relatively good in terms of the way that it's been filmed and some of the dialogue that has been in there. But of course, we will have to wait and see with regards to that. Let's see if we can skip down to Ahsoka. Okay, here we are. It will be released in August of 2023, and I have to say the trailer did make it look like a good upcoming series, much like the original trailer to The Mandalorian. But we will have to see if they treat Ahsoka with as much respect as they did with The Mandalorian, making him essentially a secondary character to Bo-Katan in season 3. Of course, with Ahsoka being a female character, I can't imagine they're going to take her out of the spotlight and replace her with a male character. And that might sound like cynicism, but tell me that I'm wrong. Of course, a second season, as we say here, Rosario Dawson confirmed that it is likely if this is a success, but of course, with viewing figures being down for The Mandalorian and Star Wars burning the fingers of all of their fans in recent years, can you blame them if they don't line up to watch this one? Of course, we are going to see Thrawn in this as well, which is a main character from different aspects of the timeline as well. Furthermore, of course, we also know that we are going to continue to get the current series of The Mandalorian, and Moff Gideon is set to return next week after a I've lost my wording. After a clip was shown at the celebration with Moff Gideon included. Of course, we will also look at another series. Andor is coming back for season 2, something that was largely positive in its reviews and its viewing figures for Lucasfilm, Disney, and Star Wars, something that took us away from the recent Star Wars format and looked at something well within the Rebel movement and looked at something that was far more structured around a story rather than just action scenes, Baby Yoda, and messages about gender roles. But of course, we will have to wait and see what they do with this. The cast of Andor did a fantastic job in season 1. It was very well received across the board, though its viewing figures weren't as good as maybe they will have hoped. It is likely that this is going to continue to build up to where we will meet the Rogue One story, of course, where we know that Andor does not survive and doesn't go any further. It's also worth highlighting, and I'm going to focus a little bit more in just a moment. I will continue to scroll through this, but we have seen highlighted things, the Acolyte, which we have had sort of in the mill for a very, very, very long time without any news. It has been officially confirmed now. The Acolyte is set between the Old Republic and the prequels, and is pitched as Frozen meets Kill Bill, which makes me extremely nervous about what this will actually be. I know that Jude Law has been confirmed as a member of the cast, but we will very much have to wait and see what we are likely to get with that one. We also saw a clip, or there's a trailer going around of the Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew, of course, is another Disney Plus series. And again, let's just highlight the fact that Star Wars, the biggest franchise, arguably, of all time, is now mainly a streaming franchise on a streaming app that sits on your TV, instead of being an event at the cinema like it should be. Every time they release a piece of content, instead, they have turned it into streaming only, essentially, because I can guarantee you right now, although it will make money, the Rey Skywalker movie will not be popular or well received. I can guarantee it now. I made a mistake a second ago. Jude Law is a member of the Skeleton Crew cast, not the Acolyte, but as I say, he is confirmed, will be directed by a number of different people. The directors on the series will include John Watts, which is good, David Lowery as well, and then some other more questionable people. Jake Schreier, who's been involved in The Mandalorian, as has Bryce Dallas Howard and Lee Isaac Chung. So it'll be interesting to see what this looks like. But one of the key things you have to take from this, with these directors being utilized across the board, is that they really need to make sure that they make this look different to The Mandalorian, make this look different to Andor, and make the stories engaging in different ways. And the last thing on this page, before I scroll back to the top and be a bit more focused, is, and I will do a video for this next week, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny got a trailer, and it looks absolutely horrifyingly bad, and something we absolutely do not need at all. But again, Disney have decided to go after a franchise to try and bring it up to modern standards, and will likely ruin it. But of course, let's focus back in here where we talk about all the different movies that we're set to see. There will be 3 movies with directors Dave Filoni, James Mangold, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. The Star Wars movies, of course, finished with The Rise of Skywalker, which wrapped up a terrible sequel trilogy that no one enjoyed largely. It split the fan base at best. But now we are looking at a film that is going to bring back Rey. As I said, Daisy Ridley is going to return. She was brought out on stage, as you can see in the image that has been shared by IGN. So very thankful for that, along with a number of people in their costumes. It's going to be set, as I said before, it's going to be set 15 years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, and will be directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. It's interesting to see that Daisy Ridley is coming back after the character of Rey and the actress Daisy Ridley were not hugely popular in the sequel trilogy that we did receive some time ago. Of course, the last movie dropping in 2019, so 4 years ago. And since then, of course, we have had lots of streaming content, which, as I said beforehand, the numbers have dropped on. Do I want to see this movie? Hell no, absolutely not. Have no interest in seeing Daisy Ridley or Rey come back to the big screen or the Star Wars franchise ever again. Let's not forget that she finished The Rise of Skywalker, stupid name for that movie first and foremost, because she just took the name Skywalker, decided she was a Skywalker just by saying it to a random woman. So not only is Rey now decided that she's a Skywalker and is going to be one by the looks of it, we are also going to see the rebuilding of the Jedi Order. How? I can't believe they're going to focus on Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order. It's something that Luke Skywalker was trying to do and seemingly did unsuccessfully in The Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, and The Force Awakens, in the timelines between the original trilogy and then. So Rey, with her minimal training, with her lifetime of ignorance about the Force, her lifetime of living on Jakku as a scrapper, she's going to lead the new Jedi Order with her lightsaber, her yellow orangey lightsaber that she got from ? It's also worth highlighting that Charmin Obaid-Chinoy was one of the directors on one of Marvel's worst received and lowest viewed series so far on Disney Plus, Ms. Marvel. So by any means, this is not a good get as a director either. You have to ask the question, why she is directing this movie and not someone who is more experienced or someone who has got more experience in this sort of arena in terms of fantasy and sci-fi, but they have made the decision. And again, as I said on a recent video reviewing the Mario movie, which is actually going to come out after this one, I have nothing against anyone specifically for their acting or directing performances, but I would like to see them make better decisions, seeing as what they have been producing recently has been largely vilified by the fan base and viewing figures continue to drop. Like I said, The Mandalorian, your flagship show, was unable to get people interested and maintain that level of interest. It got people hooked, and you've made the character less engaging, you've made the series less must watch, and as a result, here we are with viewing figures continually dropping below what you might want. Now, Dave Filoni's movie might be something to look more forward to. Of course, we will be seeing something that will focus on the New Republic. There's nothing that's necessarily been released yet in terms of information or trailers, but it's good to know that there's something in the works that's going to focus on the New Republic. Of course, Dave Filoni has been involved in Star Wars for a long, long time, in some really good stuff and some not so good stuff. As it says here, this will be his first live action film, but he has worked on things like The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, as well as animated series in the Clone Wars and Rebels. Now, some of that is really, really good. Clone Wars, Rebels, and the early episodes and series of The Mandalorian. But his involvement in the later episodes and series of The Mandalorian and the whole of the Book of Boba Fett makes me slightly nervous because, again, they are not things that have been well received. And is any of this necessarily going to see the rise of Star Wars again to the elite level that it was at as a franchise? I have question marks about that. Again, to highlight, Star Wars, the biggest franchise of all time, arguably. It should have maintained that aura. It should be an event every time something comes out. Now, the Star Wars celebration happens without much fanfare, without people really caring about it. And this sort of news only just penetrates the mainstream because people like me and other channels like Critical Drinker, Heel vs. Babyface, and Nerdrotic all cover it to bring it to you. But are you excited for any of these movies? I have to say, none of this gives me divine inspiration to get back into watching any of the older Star Wars products. Nothing that engages me in making sure I write down the date that any of this stuff is set to drop, but I won't try and hinder your enjoyment. But let me know what you think. Are you excited for the future of Star Wars? Does any of the released information today from the Star Wars celebration make you excited about where we are going next in galaxies far, far away? Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Flatback 3 on Spotify, on YouTube, and on Instagram. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you soon.